The sun has left and forgotten
Your stories don't define
me.
you, but
It's
how you tell them
dark,
will.
I
Hi, I'm
cannot
Sarah Elkins, your host and
see.
Chief Story Maker at
Why
Elkins
does this
Consulting.
rain pour down? I'm
When I
gonna
say story maker, I
drown
just want to
in
remind
the
you, listeners,
sea
that
of
the stories that you live every day are the stories that you'll tell in the future. So make sure that your actions, your behavior are in alignment with your values, how you want to be known, and the stories you want to be able to share in the future. I think a lot about whether what I'm doing or saying is something I'd be embarrassed for my children to see. And if that's the case, it just doesn't happen. This is a really important lesson for all of us. And it's something I've learned over time and continue to learn and make mistakes, obviously. But our guest today has really taken this to heart. What are the messages that we send in our everyday actions, in the art we surround ourselves with, in the way we spend our money? Today's guest is Anne Plaisance, and we met on LinkedIn, and you are in for such a treat, listeners. Anne, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
So, listeners, just so you know, right before we hit record, Anne showed me a painting that she did, a portrait of Maya Angelou as a young woman. And this is just going to be the beginning, the jumping off part of our conversation. So, Anne, tell me, what's something about you that most people don't know about you?
Hmm. I would say I'm sometimes unpredictable.
Unpredictable. Tell
Yes.
me about when that happened recently.
I would say very often people have a certain image of me, but when they get to know me better, they see like that uh, that didn't expect. Like I can be funny, um, I can be very vulnerable, I can be very rebellious. It's a bit all over the place.
I love hearing you say that because people know me to be a little impulsive and sometimes unpredictable. So it's nice hearing that people assume that you're not like that. Because we're kind of opposites. When I met my husband and we started dating, I told him early on that I didn't want kids. I said, I don't have any interest. I can't take care of me. I don't wanna be responsible for another human being. I just don't wanna go there. So he agreed, and when we decided to get married, I made it very clear that this was a thing and that if he wanted kids, that we needed to not do this. And he said, "No, I want you more than I want children." I was like, "Okay."
Beautiful.
But when, I found we got married in May 31st, 1997. And in August, I left for 3 months, from Washington, DC to the Bay Area to work. And on the way to the airport, I said to my husband, "I should probably let you know that I traded out prenatal vitamins for the pill." And he said, "What?" So, it doesn't show up quite as dramatically anymore in my 50s, but in my 20s, it was pretty dramatic. So tell me about a time that that happened and you surprised somebody.
Oh gosh, that's such a good question. I don't know if I can think about anything. I would say maybe maybe 5 years ago, I surprised a lot of people. Um, so it was 2020 in November 20 actually, and it was a beautiful day, sunny day, a bit cold, but a beautiful day. And I remember looking at my house. It's a white ranch near the golf course in a tiny town uh, with a nice blue color for the front door. I like blue. And I looked at the house for the last time, and I drove away with my 2 kids and my dog. And actually, I was fleeing my at the time husband because he had been abusive, and I had prepared my exit for quite a while, like a spy, because COVID, lockdown, he was spending a lot of time at the house. It was the scariest, I guess, moment in my life because, as people might know, the moment when you leave is the most dangerous one. And actually, so many people were shocked by this because on the outside, we presented as the perfect family. And for a long time, I thought that we were a perfect family. But, there was what we presented outside, and there was what was really happening inside. So I remember like all the neighbors in total shock of what happened, all the friends what happened, because I didn't tell anyone. No one knew. And I had just maybe 2 friends who I trusted enough to say what was going on. And what was going on was a lot of emotional abuse, psychological abuse, more and more control, uh, more and more financial abuse, uh, physical abuse especially on one of my kids. So it just reached a point where I just couldn't take it anymore, and I had done everything in my power to try to save what I thought was savable, what could be saved. But I was the only one who was working on that. So fast forward, I transformed this pain into purpose and into power, working on an exhibition that is traveling right now in Europe called Wonder Women Now, about the strength and the resilience of survivors of domestic violence to transform what I've been through into a vehicle for empowerment and education, as well as a tool for transformation, actually. So to give you an example, I was very naive. I thought that I had found I had met Prince Charming. I was 20 something. But actually, what was happening, there was a lot of manipulation tactics that were used that I wasn't aware of. So what I'm doing with all my artistic projects is to show through art, for example, what these manipulation tactics are. Can I show you some examples?
Yes.
An image
Yes.
worth 1,000 words. So, for example, the beginning stage of the relationship was love bombing.
Oh, wait, hold it up there, and I'm gonna take a screenshot so we can include it in the show notes for people who are listening but not watching.
Okay, all right, yeah, I can always send you some more pictures if you want.
That's good. Mhm.
Uh,
So, for our listeners, what does it say on the label? It's a perfume bottle,
yes,
crystal perfume bottle, and what does it say on the label? It says Love Bomb,
yes,
Plaisance, Paris, which is your last name, Eau de Parfum. Did I
yes,
pronounce that right?
yes. Eau de parfum, Plaisance Paris, love bomb. So it's really giving a tangible form to something that is very intangible. Like, how do you show a manipulation tactic, whether it's love bombing, coercive control, gaslight, future faking, triangulation, hurt and rescue. There are like 40 manipulation tactics used by abusers. And they're put up in such a complex form, a little bit like the the complexity of a perfume. So that's that was the idea behind it. And there are like several stages, like the love bombing, then some gaslighting, etc. It really gives an intoxicating illusion of love, trust, and security, especially at the beginning, while concealing the true intent of the abuser, actually. So, you know, the second thing about this, sorry, about these perfumes, about this art, this art piece, is that actually perfume is really linked to our it's directly wired into the limbic system, into our brain. So the how to convey that in a easy way, it really directly activates the amygdala, the brain's emotional center, and the hippocampus that is responsible for memory formation. So that's why very often, like, when you feel a perfume, you feel you have very strong memories linked to that. And the third thing that is conveyed in this specific artwork is also the codependency and the chemical dependency of the victim to the abuser, created because of the tactics of cold and hot, and the combination of all these tactics and the cycle of abuse, like I love you, I hate you, I love you again. It's we
Mhm.
creates a very strong chemical bond with the person. So that's it's one of many examples of the artworks that are presented in this exhibition, that allow people, when they go through the show, to understand slowly what domestic violence is.
Mhm.
Because they need to experience it and to understand it on I would say body level. Like to give you a more precise example, imagine you enter a house, you go from the living room, you go to the dining room, to the kitchen, you go from the most public space to the most private space. And that's the shape of the exhibition, that shows also uh, the how the abuse is happening in a public space and how it's happening in a private space. And usually it just like increases in the private space, where no one knows, no one sees, no one hears. And my mission is really to to tell this story, even though it's not easy to tell, because it can happen to anyone. I'm educated, I was living in an affluent city, I've traveled a lot, and it happened to me,
Mhm.
and I had no clue. And at the beginning, I was extremely ashamed by what happened. I was like, how come I didn't see it coming?
How did I let this happen? I'm a strong woman. I was raised differently than this. Right, all the self-doubt.
Exactly. So I was like, I want to share this story because there are so many people who are going through the same, who don't know what is going on, who are not feeling safe to tell anyone. And I think, the stigma should go from the victim to the abuser, and we don't talk about it enough. In even the language is, violence against women. It should be men's violence against women, because it's like it gives like it's something that is happening to women, and we can't do anything about it. Whereas in fact, it's happening because some men decide to abuse women. So I think that words are very important also.
Mhm. So one of the first thoughts that came to my mind as you were telling your story about pulling away from that blue door, driving away from it, and seeing it for the last time. One of the thoughts that came into my head was, when I spoke up against things that I didn't like that were happening in my household, the reason I would speak up is because I knew that my kids were watching.
Mm.
So if, I was uh, we had an exchange student who was very disrespectful toward me, and it was so important. My husband and I both would say to him, "That's not acceptable behavior in our household," because these our 2 little boys were watching this behavior and wondering if they could emulate it, or if they should, or if it was okay, right? All of that thing. And again, it comes back to the first part of the conversation when I said, when I think about my actions, the words that come out of my mouth, I wonder how my kids would perceive it.
Mm. Yeah.
So, what were your thoughts now that you look back? At the time, you couldn't have possibly been able to be super conscious of that. But now that you look back, where do you think that showed up?
I think it showed up. Uh, I think I didn't see it coming because in a way I was used to it. Now I'm realizing how my childhood impacted me. You know, my child. I heard the term last week of what was it, like adverse childhood
Child
experience.
yeah, trauma. Mhm.
And I was like, oh, I didn't even know there was a term for that. But I'm like, I'm actually presently reflecting on that, on the childhood experiences, on working on shadow parts, on taking part of the inner child. So I'm like in the midst of it, and I can tell you it's like extremely painful. But at the same time, it's so necessary because what you don't transform, you transmit. And
Right.
my goal since for many years have been I don't want to transmit anything. I don't want to transmit any trauma. I don't want to. I want my kids to be happy and you have first to really deal with your with your shit. Honestly, you can say so. I don't know. You can.
Yes. I don't have any rules.
Yeah, so I'm going through it right now, and I just now really understand how your childhood experience. So I was abused sexually when I was a kid, and it just impacted me tremendously, and I had no clue. So going back and analyzing what was going on, during my childhood, I know now how I was like prepped for.
Mhm.
It was like, of course, I would meet someone who was like that. It was normal. It was part of the script.
It feels familiar, which feels comforting in some ways.
Exactly. It's
Right.
like you are used to certain things, to certain types of persons, to certain behaviors, to certain ways of talking. But I think that fast forward, I was 22 years with my ex, and I was deeply in love. I adored him. Just that slowly but surely, my sense of self just like was crushed.
So
Yeah.
you were saying that, it was very gradual, so you weren't noticing until you lost yourself. You it was a destruction of your soul. So the other it felt so gradual that it was hard to look back and see where you started to realize that your kids were being impacted by it, and that is what probably alerted you to start to pay attention to what was really happening.
Actually, it happened. My kids were the triggers. They were like, they were just the ones who made me realize what was going on. So when my younger child was 12, um, she began to cut herself.
Oh.
And I remember vividly, it was an evening, Monday evening. She loves to draw, to paint, etc. She's very artistic. So she had painted all over her arms, and I was like, "Oh, it's beautiful." And I touched it, and it was all cut, all covered by drawings. And at the time, I had read this book, Little Life by Anya Igira. I'm sure I mispronounced her name, but wonderful book that made me realize the impact of depression, social anxiety, and what it means to attempt to end your life. So she was this tiny little girl, all like all thin and all cut. So I took her in my arms, told her that I know what's going on, I'm here for you, I love you, what can I do, what's going on, like what the heck. And I remember going to my husband at the time and saying, we have a problem. She needs our love. She needs our support. We need to protect her. We need to do something. So, go and comfort her. So he went to see her. He didn't comfort her, but shouted at her, like, what's going on? What are you doing? And then he came back to me and said, it's your fault. It's your daughter. Deal with it. And that was the day I knew that, okay, first of all, I need to take care of her because it's a matter of life or death. But then at one point, I need to take care of what is going on in my marriage because that's not what I call a partnership.
Mm.
So fast forward a few months, she's in a hospital. She spent in total 8 months because she was trying to kill herself quite regularly. So I could see that she just felt horrible. And during interactions with hospital, with a psychiatrist, with a nurse, with social worker, like we met so many people and we talked to so many people. The first time I heard they told him that he had anger management issues. And I began also to observe his reactions, my reactions, the kids' reactions, the social workers' reactions. And it just felt in my body that, okay, it's not normal what's going on. So gradually I discovered that, yeah, it's not normal. uh, I had also organized in a shelter in Cambridge art workshops during which I learned about all the different abuse that exist. So I would say the combination of all of that, what was going on in my family, the art that I was doing in shelters, the education I received, like the cycle of violence, the manipulation tactics, etc. All of that just began to make me look at things in a different way. And fast forward, I think it was 2019 or 2020, my kids began to say, like, Mom, don't you see what is going on at home?
Oh, ouch.
And I was like, okay, I thought that they didn't see what was going on, but they were seeing. So I remember one evening, my younger one, I noticed that she had something on her arm, and actually she had like burnt herself. I think it was fall of 2020, and she was like, "Mom, when are you leaving him? Because I don't know how much longer I can."
Oh,
do." And my heart sank, and I thought I really need to leave because she won't survive it. She will just, find a way of living.
mhm.
So I would say My kids opened my eyes on what was going on. They were the ones who were more aware than I was.
Mhm.
They
We
so
I think it's easier to see it from outside of the immediate,
yeah,
experience that you're having. I think that's why, it's so important to have people in your life that you're gonna trust and listen to. Every situation I've heard, not every, I would say 90% of the situations that I've heard about abuse in a relationship, the family or the best friend or the sister tries to tell the person,
yeah,
"This is not okay. I know you love him. This is not okay. Or I know you love her, but this is not okay." And we don't listen
yeah.
because we're in love and we have, as you said, all those different parts of our brain are engaged and in an almost obsessive, addictive cycle of
But
the
yes,
light and the dark, the love and the hate. So when I asked you about your kids and being motivated because of your kids, that's that was it. Like, and it's amazing. You told me when we had our first conversation before we started recording that you started doing this artwork in shelters while you were still married to him, and he
yeah,
didn't want you to do that work.
ye
He didn't want you to volunteer to do that.
yes.
What was that conversation?
I remember telling him, "Yeah, you're not very supportive of, like, you don't ask questions, you're not supportive." And he had this strange answer that I didn't get at the time, like, "Yeah, I don't like what you're doing. I don't think you should do work with, about this subject." I didn't get it at the moment. Now, of course, I get it, but at the moment, I was like, he's not supportive."
There's some
Oh,
irony
yeah.
there.
Of
When
doing that.
eh,
So
the other thing that, I wanted to come back to from, again, a previous conversation, so our listeners get the benefit of hearing this. When you left and you had friends, you had 2 friends that were helping you, you didn't tell anyone where you were going for fear that they would then share it with your husband, and you knew it had to be a clean break, you knew you had to be completely separated for a while before things when things could finally settle down and you could start telling people. When was a moment where you I let me back up a little bit. When something big happens with me, oftentimes I feel like I'm so filled with relief that I don't have room for happiness. I don't have the emotional capacity to celebrate something when I'm still in this period of relief. So, like when something happened with our older son and it was so traumatic, and he finally came home, and my sister said, "Are you just so happy?" And I was like, "There's no room for happy yet." When was the moment when you could find that happy? I know with my son, it was when I heard him in our kitchen with his younger brother laughing and having a funny conversation about music and current pop stuff, because neither of them are big into current popular music or whatever. They're not trendy people. But I remember sitting in the dining room, eating with my husband, and hearing them interact and just being filled with happiness. Like, ah, that's that's what I was waiting for, was that sound where the relief could leave room for something else. Do you remember a moment when you felt like that?
I think I have a moment in mind that just like is imprinted in my mind. When I left in November 2020, and I think it was like February or March. I had rented an apartment. He didn't know where we were, and my elder daughter prepared a card for me. You had the image of Wonder Woman on it, and she wrote, "You gave us back our freedom, you gave us back our joy, you gave us back our future." She wrote a whole list of what I gave back to them. And I still hold dear this card because it was, I had my hesitations like, is it the right thing? Is it not the right thing? But she said beautifully that, I gave my kids back a life and a potential future because they were absolutely desperate and miserable. So that was like the beginning of, it was tough as hell, but I did the right thing. And they see that. And they were grateful for that. So that was like the first moment that, okay, it was a shift. And then I don't know, I would say it's a small accumulation of things making us realize that, oh, at home we couldn't do that. Oh, at home we couldn't do this. Like just realizing the normalcy of being the three of us together with the dog. Like, I don't know, my kid like was cooking and, some eggs fell down on the floor and I was like, she was startled and like really afraid. And I was like, hey, calm down.
It's
Here's
just
some,
some eggs.
just some eggs. And hey, you remember like at home, he would have shouted on you, said that you're stupid or whatever.
Ugh.
We were like just realizing, day by day by day that we could have peace, we could have normalcy, we could have harmony, we could breathe and not be all the time like, oh, what's gonna happen?
So it's been almost 5 years. It'll be 5 years next month.
Yeah.
November 20th, 2025 will be 5 years. I'm assuming you're still having those moments. And the reason I say that is, I have a friend who was in a marriage for 10 years and then divorced, and she read the book, um, Eat
Eat, pray, and
Eat, Pray, Love, right? Eat, Pray, Love. And I was working at our library at the time, and I had no interest in reading that book. Like, it just seemed so silly to me. But she said, "Please read the book because it really describes how I'm feeling right now. And I feel like it'll help you relate to what I'm going through." And I love her enough to read a book I had no interest in. It wasn't gonna hurt me, right, to read this book. But one of the things that resonated with her most was her ex didn't like her wearing certain colors.
hmm,
And one in particular, he didn't like her in red.
could
And
be.
I know red to be a power color. And it
Yeah.
doesn't surprise me at all that he didn't like her in red. And she looks gorgeous in red. Like it's a perfect color for her. And when she walked into her closet a few months after they had split up, and she was looking at her clothes and thinking, what do I want to wear today? And she said it out loud. Well, what do you want to wear today? And it was this moment of liberating joy.
Yeah.
Are you still having those moments as we're coming up to those 5 years?
Oh yeah. I continue because it's like I can do this. No one will tell me, there's no control anymore. I'm in control of my life. And even though at the beginning it felt scary because it's like, what do I want? Uh, I don't know.
Oh,
What do I need? I have the right to have needs. Me? Like, I've been and I'm still going through a lot of that, but it feels like, yeah, I love learning. Uh, I can learn. I can, I signed up for an AI course, like it's the second year. I love it. I remember he didn't want me to, like, I signed up for a course online at Harvard, and he was like just disturbing me all the time. I couldn't learn. So
right.
I've done like so many things that I wanted to, but I couldn't. that it's just like, building up the empowerment, the foundation also of like, feeling stronger in yourself. But it's, yeah, I can eat what I want, I can wear what I want, I can go where I want. It's like I don't have to report to anyone. And I just slowly but surely discover, like I would say it's a little bit like kintsugi, the Japanese art, where you fill all the cracks with gold, but here you fill your soul with love and with
Mm.
attention and with time and with like, curiosity too, because sometimes you have reactions that are like, why did I react this way? Why did I say, this thing?
Why did I get so angry?
Okay.
Right.
Why am I so
What
activated?
yeah.
Trauma. Hello, trauma.
History.
Yeah. So it's like, I don't know, it's just liberating. And, I remember when I was in 2020, I just felt so miserable. And I was like, one day I will have like three things like, peace, harmony, freedom. And I was writing every day what I want. And for me, it was something that was conceptual. Like,
What
yeah,
does that even look like? How do I describe it? I just know the word, right?
that's what I want, but how does it feel? I don't know. And I'm like, yeah, I have peace, I have harmony, I can read books as much as I want. It's just liberating, and it's yeah, I did the right thing, and my kids agree, and
Mhm.
in a much better place than they were like 5 years ago.
Of course. Yeah, because 'cause they're going through the same liberation of making choices.
Yes.
That's when I think about one thing that every one of us needs to do for ourselves is periodically take inventory
Yeah.
because we don't have control, but we have choice.
Yeah.
And I had this conversation with my sister after I got back from a trip that I had some disappointments about it. It was an amazing experience. When I look back, I can look at all the beautiful things that I explored, but there were some disappointments in it. And she said, "Oh, what was disappointing?" And I had to try to put my finger on it. What needs was I not getting met
Hmm.
that made it feel that way? And when I finally did, I said, I wish I had taken inventory then. What do I want for myself right now? What would make me feel different than I feel right now? Do I have choices that can change how I'm feeling right now? And she said, most of us as women don't ask ourselves those questions often enough.
Yeah, because we don't have a time. We're, more focused on taking care of others than taking care of ourselves.
Mhm.
And I think we need, to reclaim our power and become, who we are supposed to be, and continue to grow and develop and
Right.
change and, discover who we are.
And
We
it benefits all of our relationships. Like, I think if I had done that, then my partner would have had more fun too.
Mm,
And the next time we took a trip, I did say, I think I need this right now. And he'd say, okay, great, go ahead. I'm not going with you, and that's fine. Like, great. And
yeah,
it was such a better trip for both of us because I took that time to choose.
yeah. I think we need to regularly come back to us and see, when we are like in a weird space, like really take, okay, what's going on? What do I need? What is missing? What do I need more to be happy? Or just like take inventory, right, and take care of that and act on that.
Absolutely. And use our words. Most of the time, it has to be internally driven.
Yes.
But there are times like when I look at my spouse and say, I need to hear thank you right now. I need to hear that you appreciate what I just did, or I need to hear that you think I'm beautiful. I need to hear that right now. But I think that's why we've been together 30 years. I tell him these things, and he tells me, I feel like your energy is going everywhere but back to me.
Mm. That's amazing that you can, talk so freely and so transparently and so honestly.
That's
That's
not easy.
that you are doing it. Like me, I'm like, I think I still struggle to express my needs because I'm still thinking, I will be punished for expressing a need. Yeah.
Mhm.
But yesterday I did it. I expressed a need and it was met, and I was like in shock, like, wow. So it's, yeah,
Yay! Progress!
it's a
You're
muscle.
strong.
Muscle. It's like, yeah.
It
So
is. So when you told me about this exhibit that's going through Europe right now about domestic violence, and it's in the shape of a home, where you start in the most public areas of your home, your living room, and move gradually toward the more private areas, from the living room to the den to the kitchen to a bedroom, the bathroom and then the bedroom are opposite. And what I see and noticed when you told me about that before was you were absolutely acknowledging where to look for this behavior so that you can start to recognize it, because it's hidden in most cases, like it was for you, but we see evidence of it, we just don't acknowledge it most of the time.
I think,
So go ahead.
yeah, I think we see it, but I think we are also all used to it because it's pervasive in, you know, at homes, in schools, in business environments, and in politics. It's really systemic. So we are in a way used to it. When you look
Mhm,
at, what is going on in the media, in politics, in companies, it's everywhere.
mhm. It's referred to as microaggressions in a lot of cases. I had to have a conversation with a male friend of mine that was like, "I don't understand this," and I said, "Okay, imagine that you are a petite woman and people in the office, the men in the office start calling you little lady. What do you think that does in a room full of mostly men, and you're one or two women in a room of 12 men, and you're referred to as little lady? What do you think that does in terms of the culture?" And he got kind of quiet. And I said, "This happens all the time. It is totally common, and you don't notice it because it's not directed at you." But now that I said that, when you hear a man refer to a woman as, "Hey, little lady, how's it going?" Or, "Hey, young woman, how's it going?" You're going to hear it now, and
Yeah.
you're going to notice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's pervasive. It's something, and it's not intentional.
No,
The
it's
men who called me that, they weren't trying to be abusive or rude even. Mm,
the other day I was talking with a friend and we were like talking about, like old movies or old, yeah, old programs that were shown on televisions, and I was born in Paris, so I have a different background and education, but we were comparing what was able to be said or what was told or like commented or like, and what you can see now, and you see the progress. Like, there was much more misogyny, much more racism, and now, like with awareness and consciousness and education and openness and discussions between people, there's like less of that. But still, in some places, it's very pervasive, and it's at the frontier. It's like, was it meant to be aggressive, or was it, and
unintentional, or yeah, I think I would say that 90% of the time, maybe even more, it's unintentional. And it's like you said, it's pervasive. It's people who grew up with um, Cinderella and 16 Candles and the movies that generated um, this sense of what was okay to say to people.
Yes,
and
exactly.
what and and even worse, how we behave socially.
Yes.
So I think of like 10 Things I Hate About You, which was an 80s movie that was the taming of the shrew in the 80s with high schoolers. And The Summer I Became Beautiful, or something like that. All these storylines about girls who are smart and maybe they wear glasses, maybe they have curly hair, so they're not traditionally or socially considered beautiful, and they change themselves. Grease, Olivia Newton-John, they
Yeah.
change themselves to fit what the men think are will be attractive.
And what the social norms of beauty are.
Right. And Cinderella, where you're waiting for a prince to come and rescue you. And you're so beautiful, and so girls are mean to you because you're pretty.
Mm,
Like, where where do we think kids are going to take these lessons? They are influenced by the
yes.
media they experience.
Yes. That's a big subject because media have an enormous influence on kids. Social media, like I was reading somewhere that towards boys who have as soon as they have a phone and they begin to install their Instagram or TikTok account or whatever social media they want to use, like within like maybe 15 or 20 minutes, they are targeted with misogynistic content, pornographic content, and it's just insane. Like, kids who are 9 or 10 are just flooded with that kind of information. And little girls, it's like, uh
Cover up. Don't be
yeah,
smart. Look at
yeah,
how pretty you are. If you
yeah.
really want to be pretty, you need to lose weight. Right?
Pressure on little girl to be a certain way, and then you have an enormous pressure on little boys to, look at women and girls in a certain way. And it's scary. It's scary because as parents, how do you deal with that?
Yeah. So let's come full circle, wrap this back around to the beginning. When I think about your art and how it can make a difference, I think about how working in the shelter gave you a clue before you left your husband that something wasn't quite right. And the exposure to your art of people that might not realize that something's wrong, women and men, to figure out some of the symptoms, some of the things that are happening that are leading you down a path that it's going to be really hard to get out of. When I think about that, I think about how we can make sure that people are exposed to ways to address it, or exposed to ways to see it earlier than you did and not wait for your kids. And also, how do we make sure that people understand that leaving is for their kids, it's not just for them?
Yeah.
Have you thought about that in your artwork?
Yeah, I have a lot because like art is great. It's for me, it's the language of the soul. You convey ideas and emotions in a way that just speaks to you, whether it's, through painting, through poetry, through music, through movies, through literature, through anything, architecture too, it can be impactful. But not everyone is attuned to the idea of art. And for example, why did I end up going on a course about AI? Because I realized that fine art is still very elitist. Not everyone is going to galleries, not everyone is going to museums, not everyone is going to art centers, not everyone is interested or is curious about it. It's still, a limited portion of people. So I was thinking, how can I have a broader impact, because yeah, not everyone will right now go to Slovakia or Serbia or Poland to see my show. It's like, eh, or
Mhm.
so last year I began to work on a app on an app with a MIT fellow that would help people recognize, all these signs of gaslighting, coercive control, love bombing, etc. So it's an app with a game. I mean, the first iteration was with a gamified approach to recognize, to hear examples, to win some points. Like, like, yeah, I know how to recognize gaslighting.
That's awesome.
10 points. Now
Mhm.
I have a PhD in recognizing future faking. I'm like so that's the idea behind it. So I'm still working on it. It's I need to do a lot of iterations, and I need also funding at what point. But recently, in between, because I like to have impact on others. With my newest painting series, I developed a digital guide that helps people, like become more of themselves. So I'm like adding slowly. I'm going out of the art, I would say, the art scene to add additional tools to help more people, because not everyone can, buy a painting uh, or a perfume. So I'm looking for tools of education, empowerment, so that people are more can have an easier access to information. But also what I'm beginning to do, it's like I haven't done that before. It's like sharing my story, with you, with other people, because some people shared their stories with me and it helped me tremendously. Like when I was going through the divorce, it was a nightmare and I was so desperate and miserable. But some people who were on the other side shared, what they had been going through, that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I was like, I just see the tunnel, I don't see any light. They had like, went through like, oh, here's my list of dreams.
Right.
And then like I had like 20 lists of dreams and I've done it all. And for me, it was amazing. So, I realized that the power of telling your story is giving some insight, some inspiration, some hope to another person who will
Mm.
see, hey, maybe I can have that for me too. So I really believe, like you, in the power of stories, in the power of storytelling, in the power of being vulnerable, in the power of being authentic. For me, it's not easy. It's something I'm working on, because for a lot of time I thought that I can't be authentic. I can't be myself, because I was just like shunned every time I was. So
Mhm.
going out of my comfort zone, it's like it's helping others, saying, okay, you can go out of a situation like that, you can see hope, you can change your life, you can improve your life. And my thinking is always, if I can help even like one person with a ripple effect, you can help like, entire family. To give
Mm.
example, when I'm working with another shelter in Boston, and it's kids who are impacted, like, little boys, little girls. You have women who go, with one kid in one hand and one plastic bag with few belongings when they leave their abusers. So it's entire generations. And my, survivors of domestic violence are, for me, a great source of strength and inspiration, because for me, it's like they shouldn't be ashamed, because they are showing where our society should go. They are showing that they have the strength, they have the gut, they have the power, they have the will to leave a difficult situation, to change their lives, but to change also their kids' lives. And they should I did a series called Wonder Women, photographing them, like, power. Let me show
In the Wonder Woman stance. Right.
you.
I love it.
Because they are trying to improve at their level society. And what aches me every day is that women are not believed, they are not heard, they are not listened to, they are doubted, which leads to horrific situations. That's my mission, that's my purpose, to just, okay, I will tell my story, because if it helps one person, I'm happy.
I love that. I love that. And what I'm hearing also is that it's not just how do you recognize it so you can avoid it? How do you recognize it when you're in it? How do you leave?
Yeah.
And the most important part is, what do you do after? How do you rebuild your identity? How do you start asking yourself what you want? How do you find the resources and the people you need to surround yourself with to rebuild and live those dreams that you make your list of? That's what that says to me.
Yeah. And it's like one tiny ant step at a time. It can be one action per day. It
It
can
can.
be one line in a journal. It can be one conversation. It can be, I don't know, 1 minute for yourself to say, okay, what do I need right now? What do I want? So it's this accumulation of, I like ants. There's a fabulous book by I think Jacques Weber in France. It's a whole saga about ants. It's fascinating.
I love, was it the movie The Bug's Life, A Bug's Life, where the ants are, in service to the grasshoppers, and then they realize that there are more ants than grasshoppers at the end, and they have a revolt? I think that was A Bug's Life, that was that one, but there were 2 at about the same time, Bug's Life and Ants, the movie. They're both, animated films, but yeah, that's my moment when the protagonist at the end says, "I'm not afraid of you, and there are a lot more of us," and he sees the head grasshopper twitch, and he's like, "And you know it. You know it." Like, and then all of a sudden, all these ants start getting really angry. They're like, there are a lot more of us." You're right. It's those
I think the
steps, tiny steps.
symbolism of the ants and the power of, in the numbers and the awareness of, uh, it's very relevant to our world right now.
It is. It is. And this has been such a pleasure. I knew it would be. I knew we would dive right in and get to the details and the authentic vulnerability. So thank you for sharing that with me and with our listeners.
It was a honor, and I really hope, at least one of your listeners will get some value from that and will be inspired to change their life, because it's in their hands. So thank you for having me on your podcast.
My pleasure. Okay, listeners, it's your turn. My question isn't necessarily what you'll do with this information. My question for you today is, will you take 5 minutes after listening to this podcast to take inventory of where you are right now in your feelings, in how you are taking action in something that you want to do? Take 5 minutes and take inventory. What do you need now? What will put you in a better place now? And what tiny ant-sized step can you take in that direction? Thanks for listening to Your Stories Don't Define You. How you tell them will.
That's the time you must keep on trying. Smile, what's the use